Quam, my name is Jason, and I live the most ordinary life in the suburbs of Chicago with my wife, Samantha. We have been married for 5 years now, and during this time, we have learned to understand and support each other in everything. One morning, as I was preparing breakfast, Samantha came down to the kitchen with a concerned look on her face. Jason, do you remember that my mom, Catherine, has wanted to update the interior of her living room for a long time? She asked, pouring herself some coffee. Vaguely, I replied, flipping a pancake. Why? Well, she has finally decided to renovate, but she needs help choosing furniture and paints. I would go myself, but work is crazy right now. Samantha looked at me expectantly. I mentally groaned. The prospect of spending the day looking at wallpaper samples and arguing about the merits of beige over cream didn't inspire me. But one look at my wife's pleading eyes, and I gave in. Okay, honey, I'll help your mom. After all, who else but the son-in-law should take the hit for interior design decisions? Samantha beamed and pecked me on the cheek. Thank you, sweetie. You're a real superhero. Just try not to give Mom a heart attack with your jokes, okay? I just smirked in response. My sense of humor is my secret weapon, and if it helps me survive this day, I'm ready to risk a couple of heart attacks. Catherine's house greeted me with the smell of fresh baked goods and classical music from the record player. My mother-in-law had impeccable taste in everything, from cooking to interiors. No wonder she got bored with her own little nest. Jason, dear, thank you for coming. Catherine kissed me on both cheeks, which made me feel like either a relative or a pedigreed poodle. Oh, Catherine, what are you thanking me for? I couldn't miss the chance to influence the fate of this living room. It will be a real battle of the century, minimalism versus luxury, high-tech versus Provence. Catherine laughed, and I noticed how her eyes sparkled mischievously. For her age, she looked amazing, slim, fit, with a neat hairstyle and flawless makeup. A true style icon, not a mother-in-law. We settled on the couch with catalogs and interior design magazines. Catherine animatedly shared her ideas, and I tried not to yawn and nod in the right places. But gradually I got into the process. It turned out that Catherine and I had quite similar tastes and ideas about comfort. We argued, laughed, showed each other pictures, like two conspirators. I didn't even notice how time flew by. When Catherine suggested having a snack, I was surprised to find that it was already almost 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Over a light lunch, our conversation smoothly transitioned to personal topics. Catherine talked about her youth, her unrealized dreams, the burdens of loneliness, and I suddenly caught myself admiring her soft smile, the graceful movements of her hands, the twinkles of laughter in the corners of her eyes. You know, Jason, I'm glad you came to help me, Catherine suddenly said, covering my hand with hers. It's so easy and fun with you, like a breath of fresh air in my measured life. Her touch sent an electric shock up my arm. I hastily pulled my hand away and smiled tightly, not knowing what to say. It seemed I was starting to get into a very dangerous situation. For the next few days, Catherine and I were completely immersed in the world of design. We must have visited every furniture store and showroom in the area. We discussed color palettes, argued about styles, meticulously studied every detail. Gradually, the awkwardness between us disappeared, giving way to ease and mutual understanding. We seemed to have become a team, passionate about a common goal. I found myself increasingly admiring Catherine, her taste, her sense of humor, her ease of communication. Our conversations became more and more personal. We shared memories, dreams, experiences. I told her about my doubts about work, about my desire to find my true calling. And Catherine opened up to me about her fears, of loneliness, of old age, of losing loved ones. You know, I've tried to be perfect all my life, she confessed once while we were studying a sofa catalog. The perfect daughter, the perfect wife, the perfect mother. And now I look back and realize, was I happy? Did I miss something important in the pursuit of this elusive ideal? I silently squeezed her hand, not knowing how to express my support. But Catherine seemed to understand everything without words and smiled gratefully. With each passing day, the tension between us grew. Accidental touches, long looks, ambiguous phrases, all of this sparked and crackled like bare wires. I understood that I was playing with fire, but I couldn't help myself. And one day, our spark finally flared up into a bright flame. It happened when we were arranging new furniture in the living room. I was helping Catherine hang a painting, and we suddenly found ourselves very close to each other. I felt her breath on my cheek, caught the scent of her perfume. My heart was pounding wildly, my mouth was dry. And then our eyes met, and all words became unnecessary. I don't know who reached for the other first. I only remember the heat of her lips on mine, her hands clutching my shirt, my fingers in her hair. We kissed frantically, greedily, as if we wanted to drink each other to the bottom. And then there was an explosion of emotions and sensations. Skin quivering from touches, rapid breathing, sweet languor. Reality ceased to exist. Only our entwined bodies and the mad, all-consuming desire remained. I didn't have time to come to my senses before it was all over. We lay on the floor among the scattered clothes, gradually coming back to ourselves. And that's when the realization of what had happened hit me. What have I done? How could I have succumbed to this madness? I'm a married man. I have obligations to my family. And Catherine is my wife's mother, my mother-in-law, damn it. Panic overwhelmed me. I jumped up, frantically started getting dressed, mumbling some incoherent apologies. Catherine silently watched me, wrapped in a blanket. It was impossible to tell what she was thinking from her face. "Jason?" she started, but I interrupted her. "Catherine, I'm sorry. This shouldn't have happened. Let's just forget about it, okay? It was a mistake, a momentary weakness." She smiled sadly and nodded. I mumbled another jumbled sorry and practically ran out of her house. My heart was pounding like crazy. My thoughts were confused. How am I going to live with all this now? For the next few days, I was beside myself. I avoided meeting Catherine, making excuses about work and errands, and I kept replaying our mistake in my head, tormented by guilt and shame. How could I have done this to Samantha? Betrayed her trust, destroyed our family. I promised to be a faithful and loving husband, and I myself. I couldn't resist a fleeting temptation, but there was something else in this story, something I was afraid to admit even to myself. The incredible closeness, the insane attraction that had arisen between Catherine and me. I had never experienced anything like it, not even with Samantha, whom I sincerely loved. As if Catherine and I were two halves of one soul, finding each other after a long search. As if only with her could I be truly myself, without masks, without pretense. These thoughts drove me crazy. I was confused. I stopped understanding what I wanted and how to live on. And I was simply afraid to meet with Catherine and discuss what had happened. But it was impossible to avoid her forever. Eventually, Samantha herself arranged an accidental meeting for us by inviting her mother to dinner. "Hello, Jason." Catherine looked impeccable as always, but in her eyes, I noticed a shadow of sadness and uncertainty. "Thank you for your help with the renovation. The living room turned out wonderful." "Yes, Mom, Jason is our natural-born designer," Samantha chimed in, kissing me on the cheek. I tried to force a smile, feeling my ears burning. All evening I diligently pretended to be engrossed in conversation, but kept glancing at Catherine. She also stole glances at me, and in those glances there was so much unspoken, so many secret feelings. When dinner was over and I went out to see Catherine off, a tense silence hung between us. We stood by her car, not daring to speak first. "Catherine, listen," I began, frantically searching for words. "About what happened between us." "Don't, Jason," she gently stopped me. "I understand everything. We both have families, obligations. We shouldn't." Her voice faltered, and I noticed the glimmer of tears in her eyes. My heart ached with tenderness and pain. How I wanted to hug her, to comfort her, to tell her that everything would be all right. But instead, I just squeezed her hand and said softly, "You're right. We'd better keep it all a secret. Pretend that nothing happened. Maybe in time we can forget it." She smiled sadly and nodded. And then she got into the car and drove away, leaving me standing alone in the middle of the street. With a broken heart and a feeling of irreparable loss, life slowly returned to its usual course. Work, home, family concerns, everything went on as usual. Catherine and I tried to act as if nothing had happened, avoiding any hints of what had occurred. But inside me, it was as if a black hole had formed. I constantly thought about Catherine, about our brief but so bright connection. Memories of that day haunted me, forcing me to relive those incredible emotions over and over again. I tried to be a good husband, to spend more time with Samantha, to surprise her with pleasant things. But every time I kissed my wife, I imagined Catherine in her place, and it only made it worse. Several months passed. One day I ran into Catherine at the supermarket, accidentally by the vegetable counter. We froze opposite each other, not knowing what to say. "Hi, Jason," Catherine finally broke the silence. "How are you doing?" "Hi. Everything is fine, thanks. Working a little, everything is fine with Samantha. How about you?" "Oh, living quietly. I took up yoga, signed up for Spanish classes, trying not to sit idle." We were silent, looking at avocados and tomatoes. And then suddenly we both spoke at the same time. "Jason, Catherine, listen." We fell silent, smiling in embarrassment. I gestured for her to continue. "I just wanted to say, I miss you, Jason. Our conversations, your silly jokes, your smile. I know we can't be together, but you've become so dear and close to me that I just can't forget you." I caught my breath. So I wasn't the only one suffering, so she also remembered us. This thought made me feel both relieved and more pained. "I miss you too, Catherine," I quietly admitted. "You have no idea how much, but we both understand. What was between us should not be repeated. For the sake of our families, for the sake of ourselves, we must leave it in the past." Catherine nodded, biting her lip. There were tears glistening in her eyes, and I barely restrained myself from embracing her right in the middle of the store. "You're right, Jason. I'm sorry I brought this up. I just wanted you to know I will never forget what was between us, and I will always keep these memories in my heart." She lightly touched my hand in farewell and left, leaving me standing in complete confusion. And in my chest, a dull pain grew, as if someone was slowly pulling out my veins. Several years have passed since that day. Samantha and I are still together. We have a wonderful son growing up. I try to be an exemplary family man and a good father, and I'm doing quite well at it. Catherine and I sometimes see each other at family gatherings, politely smile at each other, and exchange meaningless phrases. To everyone else, we are just ordinary relatives, connected only by the bonds of our children's marriage. But I know the truth. I know that once, even if only for a brief moment, we were one. That a real, albeit forbidden love flashed between us, and that a part of my heart will forever remain with her. I have learned to live with this burden. I have learned to hide my longing behind light smiles and witticisms. I have learned not to think about how everything could have turned out if, only sometimes when I am alone with myself, I let the memories run free. I replay that day in my head, those moments of absolute happiness and unity, and I quietly dream of the impossible. But this is my sweet and bitter secret, my personal what if, and I will keep it until the end of my days, not allowing the past to destroy the present. After all, in the end, each of us makes our own choice, no matter how difficult it may be. And my choice was loyalty to family and duty. I hope Catherine will understand me, and maybe in another life, everything will turn out differently for us. And then we will definitely be together, not in secret, not in stealth, but openly and freely, as it should be for two loving hearts. But for now, I just live on, day after day, year after year, keeping in my soul the image of an amazing woman and the magical feeling that she gave me, and believing that true love is worth waiting for, even if you have to wait an eternity. Did you like this story? Let us know in the comments what you liked. Subscribe to our storytelling podcast. Also, don't forget to like and ring the bell so you don't miss more interesting stories. See you soon.